right, I'm just going to assume that you can hear me. So let me just launch into this, I guess, since we're going to transition into talking about the CRA, but more specifically, the 2008 financial crisis and all of the diversity industry regulations associated with it. So if you remember, the CRA was one of several legislative engines driving what happened in 2008. Can you hear me all right before I launch into it?
I will let you know if we lose you.
Sure. So there was so much said, I guess, over that I'm not sure exactly where you think it's most productive to start. I hear that the gentleman is in the chat. If he wants to come on, I'd be happy to have a conversation about it as well. But let me tee up the issue this way. From top to bottom, what I heard last night was what somebody would say when they're reading a brochure about something that they don't really know anything about a priori, and they're just kind of reading the talking points and not really thinking about it critically, and relying on so many different kinds of fallacies, appeals to authority. Let me just launch into it. Right away, he defined the CRA as follows. He said, and this is a direct quote, "The CRA mandates banks loan money to Americans without discrimination, effectively ending the practice of redlining. It simply makes banks lend without regard to race." Don't really know anything about it.
Hello, Liberal Sanity Project.
Hi, how you doing?
Hey,
Fine. So since Frame Game invited you to join in, you are in. So Frame Game, I guess we could let Frame Game express his view first, and then we could see your response, if you guys are okay with this.
Yeah, that sounds good. So first, the way that you teed up the issue, you said that the CRA mandates banks loan money to Americans without discrimination, effectively ending the practice of redlining. It simply makes banks lend without regard to race. Is that still your position of what the CRA does?
Yeah, I think so. Or I think so.
You think it makes banks lend without regard to race?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so if there were race-based, explicit, I'm not talking about just implicit, explicit race-based provisions in the CRA, you would admit that you're wrong.
Sure, but this feels like a gambit going on.
Well, it's obviously a gambit because it is explicitly race-based. Do you want me to I can share a screen with you. I can pull up direct. I mean, I've actually worked with this.
Right.
Like, I represent clients who actually deal with this. I was on a stream with, and that's at a high level. We're talking about executive management. I mean, I've talked to bank tellers who say they have to deal with the CRA stuff, and it is explicitly racial. What it's now I would begin to give your position some more credibility, and maybe this is what you meant, and I don't mean to be too semantic about it. If you said that it uses race-based practices to try to correct historical and systemic racial imbalances, so it sort of does what affirmative action does by being race-based to combat race-based bias. Do you want to amend your thought on what the CRA is as follows, or do you want me to go through the process of showing all the different ways in which the CRA is race-based?
Well, if that's what it does, then that's what it does. I mean, if I was wrong about it, then I was wrong about it. But my understanding was that it ended redlining, which was race-based discrimination. So, I mean, if it did it that way, then sure, then I'll admit it.
Okay, are you familiar with the legal theory that was newly created in 2009 called reverse redlining?
No.
Okay, well, that's what it did. And by the way, the CRA is not alone in this. And so, one thing that I will agree with you on is that it's not just the CRA. I mean, you mentioned collateralized debt obligations and all of the different novel securitization techniques that emerged.
Well, these were the primary causes, according to the commission that observed the causes of the crash after.
Okay. All right. Now let me just correct you on this real quick.
Sure.
What you're citing there is a political document. It's dog shit. Okay. I'm just going to tell you that up front. You relying on that document is like someone relying on a Huffington Post analysis of who was going to win the Trump presidency.
Does that apply to the Federal Reserve too? Because I'm pretty sure they said the same thing.
It absolutely does, because the Federal Reserve was part and parcel in this. The Federal Reserve came out with what they came out with post 2008 in an attempt to preserve Fannie and Freddie doing business as normal and try to. Yeah, I mean, that's like asking a criminal's defense attorney for your official statement on something.
All right, so where do you?
Of course, the Federal Reserve is going to say we didn't do nothing, right?
Yeah. So where do you suppose I should go to find this information then?
I've got a great paper with you. It's absolutely perfect, and I'm not asking you to rely on it as you relied on the other document. I'm asking you to use your own independent judgment to read what you've read and the document that I'm going to send you, and I'll put it in the chat here. I'm just going to need to find the link to it again, which does a great job of summarizing. And not just summarizing, it's like a 400-page dissent from the Federal Reserve paper. So just give me a second. I'll pull it up for you.
Why should I go with the dissent over the Federal Reserve?
Why should you know what the dissent is?
No, why should I go with the... I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Sorry, my mic's a little distant. Why should I go with any consent paper over the Federal Reserve?
You shouldn't. And this is a fundamental difference between me and JF and the character that I heard last night. And I mean that, I don't mean to be disrespectful when I say that.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't defer to anyone, my man. You should just take the facts, verify whether or not the underlying facts are true, and then use your own independent judgment to determine whether 1 + 1 is 2.
Okay, where do I get these facts, and how do I trust those facts?
You can independently verify them 1,000 ways. I'm trying to pull up the exact paper for you and trying to give you time to have your position while you're asking for a specific link, and I'm going to provide it for you.
Right.
I'm trying not to touch any of my setup here. If you heard that was a little bit fragile, so why don't you fill the space for a little bit while I pull up a great source for you that you can read offline after this.
So this is the nature of gathering sources that's a little bit precarious, is that everybody's going to assume the one disagrees with him has a bias or has a flawed methodology, or they'll find any kind of a reason not to trust it. And I think that's typical of lefties and righties. It's not unique to any one side. So what I try to do is I try to find a conglomerate source that is authoritative on a matter and is generally reliable for its analysis. And the Federal Reserve, I think, qualifies under this. And I also think the same of the commission, but you disagree.
Yeah, okay, so here it is. I'm going to send this to you in the chat, and you can read this offline. This is about as official a document as you could possibly ask for, and extremely extensive. I have it all highlighted on my computer, but I'm going to send you a version now without that. Give me one moment.
And when you say it's official, who is it from?
There are a number of authors who I don't recall their particular background, but when I say official, I mean it in the sense of this has references and citations on, it is hundreds.
Biased, it's from the American Enterprise Institute. That has a conservative bias.
No, hang on.
Of course it is. Well, hold on a second. Okay, let me establish something real quick. I'm gonna take the mic back from you here. We don't defer to other people's judgment. That's not what I do. That's not what JF does. That's not having a fucking brain. The reason that I cite this and sent this to you is because there are facts here that are useful for you to do for your own independent collaboration. Sure. I do not, when the Obama administration or the Trump administration comes out with a press release about why they think something, I don't take that as gospel. I don't think of news as authoritative. I think of it as leads. I said authoritative here in the sense that this is something that has multiple authors, was months in the making, it was a widely circulated document. You asked for a comprehensive.
Yeah, but what I'm wondering is, why would I go with the dissenting opinion? Because this is a dissenting opinion. This isn't the majority of the opinion, right? You're using the same source I am. You're just using with the dissent. Why do I go with the dissent?
I think we lost Frame Games.
Well, JF, maybe you can help me understand this, because you are a researcher, you're a biologist, you're a PhD, to your credit. Why would I go with a source that is in the minority?
You're making it about source, but it's not so much about source. What I would say is do you have facts? The question we're trying to resolve is, do anyone here have facts about the racial constitution of the population that were failing under the loans of banks, specifically under CRA?
I don't, but I mean, I don't think that's something the commission really looks for.
Frame Games, are you back? We lost you. Now you're back.
Okay, I'm back. All right, great. Let me, since my mic is spotty here, let me get this off and then you guys can respond to it.
Yes, sir.
There is a threshold consideration that we need to get on the same page about before we move forward with this conversation. One, is it, when there are facts that are stipulated, does it matter to you what the source is if you can independently corroborate them?
I can't independently corroborate anything.
Okay, so let me ask you a sample question here. If there is cited in this document the fact that Bank of America had an explicit policy at several of their branches that if there was a racial minority candidate for a loan in certain majority-minority tracts, that they would not decline the loan unless it went through 3 layers of oversight. Now, if that fact was cited in the report and it was stated on record by executives at Bank of America, would that be a reason to discount the report? Do you understand what I'm saying? I can go through this with a million of these points.
But I don't think that's necessarily I don't think that's a reason to discount the report. I think it's a reason to contextualize it with everything else in the report, right? Because that speaks specifically to banks under CRA regulation. And the banks under CRA regulation only constituted something like 5% of all the subprime loans.
Well, no, you're talking about the loans, not the banks. This applies to every bank, except there are banks, the smaller you get in tier, then the more, the less onerous the regulations are. I mean, you have to understand, CRA is not like some little tiny law. It's massive. You have entire departments. You have whole divisions of a bank that are dedicated to CRA compliance. Yeah. Okay, it is a big deal when the regulator comes. You have a staff who leads them through. You have your entire year's worth of reporting data to try to get a satisfactory or higher CRA scorecard grade, because otherwise you can't do business. Do you understand the implications for having a non-satisfactory CRA rating? You don't get mergers approved. You can't open branch locations. I mean, I can go through this time and time. It sounds to me like, do you understand what a community, what a CRA like benefits agreement is? Like, do you understand what banks have to do when they open up a new branch location?
Yeah, it functions like a franchise. They're going to be giving you money. It's for the express purpose of making these loans.
Who are they giving the money to?
From other, I'm sorry, it's allowing from other banks.
No, what I'm saying is it's payoffs
to mortgage giants, the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
No, I'm saying banks like Citi or Bank of America or Countrywide or any financial institution, any financial lender who's involved in real estate. So, I mean, let's just zip up that first thread. You asked me for a source that you could go to try to get familiar with the other side of the argument.
Yeah, sure.
One which your biased news sites would not have gone into. Now, in the document that I cited to you, I freely admit it's AEI. They're biased. I don't defer to that, though, and I don't digest it, lock, stock, and barrel. But what I'm trying to do is give you an opportunity to do research that would get you approximately on the same page of those who.
I mean, I'll go over it, but it's not just AEI, and I think it's worth pointing out you're using the same source I am. You're just using the dissenting opinion from it.
Dude, I have more sources than you could possibly fathom. Okay, I have you asked for one. Do you want me to give you? I could snow you with shit.
Well, I mean,
I've got folders and folders on.
Yeah, give me them. I mean, I would love to read them. I mean, I'm not saying I'm right. I would love to find out all the ways I'm wrong.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. But, we could also talk about it right here.
Well, okay, let's talk about it. But I'm just wondering why you gave me the same source I already used.
You already used this, so you're familiar with this.
I'm familiar with the original source that said the banks under CRA regulation were not a significant contributing factor into the crisis, that it was specifically CDOs and credit default swaps.
And you think that's what this document says? Is that
I think this is the dissenting document. It says it's the dissenting statement.
Yes, it's a statement that dissents with the official. Dude, this is a pretty simple thing for you to get situated on. I'm not sure what's taken so long here.
I don't know what you're saying. What do you think I'm getting wrong?
I think what you're trying to do is say that any line of reasoning associated with a document that dissents from the official report from the criminal defense team has to be negated because it wasn't the criminal defense team. Dude, this is Looney Tunes logic that you're using here.
I'm asking why I would go with a dissenting document.
You don't go with it, dude. You literally asked for a comprehensive set of sources, or at least as many as you could get in one document. Everything else is, I mean, it's all independently verifiable. I can just show you shit if you want. I can do share screen and just show you hundreds and hundreds of citations.
Yeah, so
like you're looking for an easy answer here, man. You're looking for like a goal, like a holy grail that has perfect trustworthiness and that you can defer to, so you don't need to use your brain.
Can I ask something?
Why would? Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you decide like which source is more reliable? Is it based on how many sources there are? Which one makes more sense?
You independently verify. Why are we getting fixated on this?
He's actually bringing up a good point. How do you independently verify if you don't have the technical knowledge to independently verify?
I'll give you some quick examples. All right. I already cited one for you. Okay. That was in the context of Bank of America having 3 layers, 3 tiers when it comes to loan applicants of one race and none for the other. You could also, when they cite statutes, you know what you could do? You could turn to the statute. And guess what? I've done that. Okay? You could go through this time and time again. Do you need things to be this easy for you to actually go in deep?
Yeah, I'd like to have things broken down easily for me, like a commission that tells me what the cause is.
So why are you here? It sounds like you're not actually using your own brain, and you just want a commission to tell you.
Why would So this is a fundamental disagreement we're going to have about the nature of, I guess, confirmation bias. I don't understand why I would trust myself to interpret this data if I'm not an expert.
Yeah,
dude, I'll tell you what, I don't trust you either now. I'm starting to get the sense that literally no thought that you've had has been an original one. It's amazing here. I mean, it's like, I mean, just in the sense of being brave or having like a certain amount of chutzpah or hubris, or show me your arrogance, man. Show me like a thought that you've had that you've trusted yourself to make.
No, why would I do that?
Yep.
Oh God, man.
The Liberal Sanity Project.
Yes, sir.
Did you just? I said you are the problem in this society. You're saying I want experts to tell me what to think. You are literally giving a pedestal to hearsay.
Oh.
You're saying I won't look at the reality myself. I want an expert to digest everything and to tell me what to think. This is the problem with liberals.
Sure. And if every Tom, Dick, and Harry could just interpret data on their own, there'd be no need to have an academic explain things to me like Jean-Francois. What does your degree mean?
It means nothing. I would wipe my ass with it.
Well, I think that's really sad.
Okay, well, wait. I got one. Hey, all right. Can you calculate like 24 times 12.5?
Using a calculator?
Just kind of do it. But I'm gonna ask you to just do a problem that involves a thought, but do it yourself.
Okay.
Do it without someone, authoritatively giving you the answer.
Okay.
See if you can trust yourself to do that.
Sure.
In a while.
Well, I've got it. It's 300. It's but I think you're missing out on the nuance I was trying to explain earlier. I have the technical proficiency to calculate what 12.5 times 24 is. I don't have the technical proficiency to interpret world-changing data as far as how our banks function.
Okay. Now, so there are a few things there. This is amazing. I don't think I've ever been in a conversation before with
somebody humble enough to admit that they're stupid.
No, because this is not humility. I see it. I'm going to be honest. Like, this is like this is probably like the world's most elaborate appeal to authority fallacy I've ever seen. It's like not only do you not have the authority because there's no authoritative document, including my own, but I don't have the authority. And so we are now dealing with an unanswerable question. It's like one of these things where, like, it's like a rain delay or something. Like we're never going to actually talk about it because you need a source. But I've given you all of these sources. We can talk about the statutes. We can talk about firsthand testimony. I can give you congressional records. I can show you the White House archives of speeches.
Okay. What would you
all
say
of that stuff.
What would you say if I looked at all that data and I concluded that it was flawed methodology and it was biased, and I know the real numbers, and the cause of the Great Recession was really white people?
Great. I would love to hear. You know what I would do? I would poke at it. Okay. I would say, great. This man has now summoned up the strength. He's now like a fully fledged human. He's got a big frontal lobe. He's got that prefrontal cortex cooking, and I can now poke at what he's saying, and now we can have a conversation. And I would love that. I would love to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, if you're somebody who just tries to interpret data that you can't possibly understand on your own, it's just an imbecile. I'm not interested in contesting the consensus opinion of experts.
So what are you doing here?
I don't know. I thought we were going to have a nice chat about what I got wrong, but it's.
But you're okay. I wanted to help with that, but the problem is you have decided in your mind that the quote unquote experts, who were not so expert that they could have actually avoided the crash, but immediately afterwards published the reasons why it wasn't their fault. That's the authoritative record, and literally nothing I can say over the course of this entire conversation can have any legitimacy to you because it goes against it. No, dude, this is like a religious level. This is like deference to God. This is like trying to argue
level, but you're the one that's saying that we should.
Hang on, I'm sorry. This is the difference. Academia is a strict meritocracy, right? It's not a theocracy.
Are you fucking kidding me? Oh my god!
Oh my god!
Dude, you know what? We need JF. We need this guy as a regular. He's like Mr. Market. Have you ever read like Benjamin Graham, like Intelligent Investor? He's the guy who like overreacts to everything bad. Like he overreacts and underreacts in exactly like the median human way. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to be too ad hominem here, but you have to understand.
I'm gonna invite this guy into the next dinner where the next Jewish Nobel Prize comes to give flowers and gifts to the Nobel Prize committee, and then he can tell us. And then he can tell us if the academia is a strict meritocracy. That being said, as an academic, it is still my goal to move this discussion toward the facts. And so I have this Business Insider source, which states that there's also an unfortunate racial angle, with African Americans being 1.8 as likely to be in foreclosures as white, and Latinos being 1.4 likely to be in foreclosure. Do you deny these facts reported by Business Insider? Liberal Sanity Project?
No, don't see any reason I would.
All right, so we have established that the foreclosures were racially biased. This is what we were after.
Okay. I mean, if that's what you want to say, yeah.
Friend Games, did we lose you? Okay, you're back.
For what it's worth, Classy Liberal's been trying to get a word in for a while now. If you want to give him a chance.
Hello, Classy Liberal.
Hey, so I kind of lost my train of thought, but I just want to say that earlier, I don't want to misquote you or anything, but earlier you said that, like, of course, we shouldn't trust things like, what was it, the presidential address of Trump or Obama, but this article was written by the governor of Delaware. You don't think that there could be some sort of conflict of interest there?
Is that a question for me?
Or anyone wants to answer that.
Let me answer that. Guys, I independently verify shit. And if I can't do that, I tell you when I'm speculating. I tell you what is this? Like, what is this world we operate in where we need to defer to somebody else to tell us 1 + 1 is 2 or to do long division? These it's basic shit.
Okay, Frank, let me ask you something. Did you learn the English language on your own, or did you pick it up from other people?
I learned the English language through the people who taught me, and then I got to the point. Hold on a second. No, you gotta wait for it, because there's a sting at the end of the scorpion's tail here. Once I learned the English language, I was able to make my own fucking sentences. See, that's the beauty of these things. Once you learn, you're able to actually play with it and use original sentences. I'm not sure if this sentence has ever been articulated before in the history of human thought. Wow, you know what? I didn't need to I didn't need to run a search on LexisNexis to find out if this sentence had ever been spoken before in order to say it.
Okay. I mean, it seems like that's a good recipe for getting a paper kickback for all kinds of grammar errors.
Are you kidding me, dude?
But
if you have a working knowledge of grammar, then you're not going to fuck up the grammar when you do it. And if it gets fucked up, then it's on you to tell me where it's fucked up. But your problem is, I think you have such a high level of cowardice about this conversation that you're so afraid of getting smoked that if you were to actually get into the weeds of this, you wouldn't be able to correct me.
Yeah, which is why I wouldn't. Which is why I defer to experts. I'm not disagreeing with you.
You need to defer to the Alan Dershowitzes here. You need to defer to OJ's attorney to tell me whether or not there was a fucking white Bronco on the highway.
Oh, okay. Wait, why would I defer to the dissent again?
So how do you decide something? Is it by people who've studied something for many decades, or your arrogance?
Who's that to?
Frank.
Can I intervene here? How do you decide something? So it's actually a good question. How do we decide stuff? How do we conclude I have these facts and I trust them, or I have these facts and they're the best facts I have right now? I would say, if you have a claim and the claim has been spread already, so it's been potentially exposed to debunking, reviewing, retraction, and if you don't have anything to counter that claim, it's a good practice, if you are in a field where you are not an expert, to just say, well, I have no reason to believe that this claim isn't true. And so I don't know who Business Insider is. I'm not a reader of this place, but I see that they claim that there's a they see that they claim these. I see that they claim these numbers. And so right now, I wouldn't say I trust that these numbers are true and I will act in every possible way in my life as if they were true. But I can certainly go on in life and say, I have a solid claim here with quantified numbers, and I've not been given a reason yet to believe that they are untrue.
Okay, JF, can I ask you something?
Yep.
If Marlboro decided to do a study on whether or not there's a link through cigarettes and lung cancer, would you trust a study from Marlboro more than, let's say, the National Institute of Health?
No, but then I would have a counter opinion. I would have someone claiming the contrary. I have no one claiming the contrary of these numbers. And so I'm going to trust these numbers until I meet an allegation that they are untrue. Once I meet that allegation, I have two paths that I can take. I can say, well, you have no credibility to question these facts. So if I go on the streets right now and there's a homeless guy.
You just contradicted yourself.
Let me continue. I'm not contradicting myself because I've said nothing. If I go on the street and the allegation from a homeless guy who seems to be saying all sorts of stupid stuff, and among the stupid stuff that he says, oh, by the way, everything that's on the internet sucks. It's all fake numbers. Yeah. I'm not going to necessarily consider his allegation as valid, because I'm going to ask myself, what are the chances that this guy, in the way he formulated his sentence, that he actually knows what he's talking about as it relates to these numbers?
That's a good question, JF. How would you know he knows what he talks about?
If you have reason to believe that his statement did not have a proper understanding,
like some way there would be a reason to believe somebody.
Listen to me.
Maybe they would have like a degree or something, right? Like they would have some sort of professional credentials.
And then Papa Jeff is going to train you about expert investigative work. And I'll let you know of one truth that you can use for the rest of your life. And that's a gift for you, Liberal Sanity Project.
Thank you for the gift, sir.
Listen to this one. People
Yes, sir.
reveal their lack of knowledge in the way they phrase stuff. And you can guess it from just the way you cover these things that you don't understand. You are not in a position to question these numbers. Because by now you would have revealed it if you add anything to counter these numbers. All you've been spouting about is experts and trust and, oh, I'm not sure, and sources. You are bringing it to the meta conversation. Why? Because you have no clue of what's going on at the factual level.
Wait, I'm not disagreeing with this. Of course I have no clue. That's why I'm deferring to other people.
And so you've been passed through a process of investigation, and the result of that investigation is you have no idea what you're talking about. And so I'm going to trust the written words of Business Insider.
Okay, would you trust the written words of the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission?
Show me the words and I'll let you know.
Oh, I mean, that already tells me everything. If I have to show you it and then you'll let me know, it tells me that you're only operating on your confirmation bias.
It tells you that I'm an empirical investigator. I look at stuff before I judge it. It's a practice you should start enacting in your life.
Okay, well, I looked at all the data, and I looked at all the data independently, and it says whatever I think it says. So, and I'm an expert. I don't need a degree. I know everything. I've independently verified this. I've taken a longitudinal study from this.
What have you verified? What is the process? What is the process?
A statistically significant correlation between his birth and the Great Recession.
What is the process by which you have made these verifications? All right, you're a troll. I'm ejecting you at this point.
Oh, come on. No, come on. Oh, shoot.
No, I mean, there's a limit to the amount of trolling I can let happen on this stream. This guy is losing the time of thousands of people. I mean, this guy, I don't mind if you come here and you do jokes. I don't mind if you come here and you entertain hypotheses to stimulate the mind of people. But if you are engaged in pure trolling and you are engaged in a bad faith process of argumentation, you're losing everyone's time. Where are we at in the super chats? Sean Taylor says, source never discredits facts. Absolutely. Versdold says, I think this guy doesn't read his sources. I think he reads articles and then quotes the sources they quote. American Rebel says, part of me didn't think you could win, but my God, was I wrong. Frame Game, these people look illiterate next to you. Honorary. MD Dan, $10, thank you so much. He says, Jeff, this is my first ever donation to you. Congratulations on your total and utter dismantlement of Liberal Sanity Project in your previous stream. Keep up the stunning work. Level Best says, this might be the best public space episode. I wish I could physically eat this because it would be as delicious as foie gras. Lee McDabney says, this is your brain on Reddit. No, but what we've seen from Liberal Sanity Project is a stunning admission. Yeah, Frame Game, your microphone has dropped. When you're back, we can take you back, but let's see when you figure that out. What we've seen is a stunning case of expertismism. Let's call it that. Expertismism. And talking heads, back in the days of traditional TV and French TV, these guys were all over the mainstream media. People who would come and quote experts and say, oh, this expert is not credible, or this is a think tank, and this, that. The thing is, someone who's truly interested in knowledge doesn't care about who's bringing the knowledge. Unless you read the conclusions of people, which you should never read. The conclusion of a work of academia or a work of economic thinking is just a way to frame your brain to understand what is the author trying to tell me. But the facts is what you should stick to, and the facts are independent of the source that brings them. Anthony Cavallo says, Frame Game just checkmated this guy, completely blew him out of the water. Rex Luna says, Academia is a strict meritocracy. I can't breathe. Sean Taylor says, JF, stop, they're already dead. How's the News Network sends $50. Thank you so much. He says, Frame is an awesome Jewish attack dog. Get this, moron Frames. Sarah Sanderson sends $10. Thank you so much. Says, source fag demands a source just so he can discount any source you give that doesn't cradle his bias and then tap dance in victory. You use that source. Guess I win. Lol. Cirrus Irina says, I wish Frame Game was one of the Jews that run our world. At least he knows how to humiliate liberals. Great show, JF. Bravo. Intergalactic Lebensraum says, these people are disregarding the content of the arguments in favor of who said it. How does someone feel confident in this line of reasoning? Yosemite Sam says, liberal sanity project has become a waste of time. Absolutely, and the waste was cut off like a cancer, expelled from the body, properly digested by the remaining immunological reactions of the body, and finally cleansed from the public space. Miss Juju Pen says, this guy is independently verified as a brainlet. Frame Game, are you back? He says, no. What the fuck is happening, Frame Game? Anyways, we had a good show. We had the occasion of getting this conversation going, although it was not perfect, and Frame Game had problems with his microphone. But Frame Game says, I wanted him back. Frame Game, you don't even have your microphone, and so maybe it's best that we cut the stream for today. I think it was pretty entertaining. Frame Game says he is shouting in his room. We'll have an occasion to do that again in the future. Maybe I will have some better attitude on the side of Liberal Sanity Project, but we're not here to troll. When you spend 30 seconds of trolling and bad faith argument on my channel, this is 30 seconds multiplied by potentially 30,000 viewers. 30,000. We're talking about 15,000 minutes of people time. We're talking about a total loss in human work and intelligence of 250 hours. So when you come to this show and you start acting like a fucking retard, for 30 seconds, you are essentially enslaving brains for the equivalent of 250 hours of men work. That's unacceptable. Think about it. Your actions on this public space have consequences. And imagine a guy just being forced to work with a rock tool for 250 hours. 250 hours at 40 hours a week. That's essentially condemning someone to about 6.5 weeks of full-time work. I won't let it happen ever on the public space.